The afternoon sun glazed over the cracked asphalt of a small coastal town in Virginia. A soft breeze carried salt from the nearby docks, mingling with the faint scent of gasoline and grilled food from a diner across the street. Outside that diner, parked beside a faded blue curb, sat an old man in a wheelchair. His jacket was worn, the cuffs frayed. A baseball cap rested low on his gray brow, its embroidered letters barely readable, iron shade. To most passers-by, he looked like any aging drifter waiting for a bus that might never come. He didn't talk much, didn't ask for money, didn't carry any military pins or patches that screamed veteran. He just sat there, quiet, like a man who'd already fought all the battles worth fighting. Across the street, a group of young men laughed loudly. 3 of them wore casual workout gear, gym bags slung over their shoulders. They were newly stationed sailors from the nearby Naval Training Center, full of swagger, still high off the energy of youth and adrenaline. "Check that out," one of them chuckled, nodding toward the old man. "Old-timers posted up like he owns the block." Another smirked, probably waiting for his VA check. "Man, they'll give anyone a pension these days." The third laughed, voice sharp and disrespectful. Wheelchair and a dusty hat. Bet he never saw a day of combat. Their voices carried easily over the street. The old man didn't look up. He just adjusted his cap and continued to watch the horizon. But there was something in his stillness. Not fear, control, like a man who'd faced far worse than words. "Hey, Grandpa," one of the sailors shouted, stepping closer. "You lost your ride or what? Need us to roll you to the home?" The others laughed. The old man finally lifted his gaze. His eyes were pale, steel blue, calm, unreadable. He didn't respond, just blinked once and looked away. It only annoyed them more. "You hear me, old-timer?" The loud one pressed, leaning forward. "Or are you too proud to ask for help?" The diner's door opened. The waitress, a woman in her 40s, frowned. "Hey, you boys, leave him be." But the sailors ignored her. They were too caught up in the thrill of feeling big. The boldest one crouched beside the old man's wheelchair. "Nice hat. What's Iron Shade, huh? Some biker club?" For a moment, there was only silence, the kind that stretches just long enough to make you uneasy. Then, the old man's lips parted. "Something like that," he said quietly. The sailor snorted. "Figures." He stood up, turned to walk back to his friends, and that's when the rumble of engines echoed down the road. 3 black SUVs turned the corner, tires crunching over gravel. Their windows were tinted, their stance deliberate. They moved like a unit. The sailor's laughter died instantly. The waitress frowned, whispering, "Those look like government plates." The SUVs rolled to a stop right in front of the diner. Doors opened in perfect synchronization. 6 men stepped out, all wearing plain clothes, no insignia, no visible ranks, but their posture said everything. Straight backs, measured movement, eyes that scanned, not looked. The old man didn't move. He didn't even turn around. One of the new arrivals, tall, built like iron, with close-cropped hair, walked toward him. The sailor shifted uneasily. The man crouched beside the wheelchair and spoke softly, "Sir, we got your message." The street fell silent. The old man finally turned his head. For the first time, he smiled faintly. "Didn't think you boys still remembered me?" "Always, sir," the tall man said, his voice tight with respect. "You don't forget, Iron Shade." The sailors froze. Word traveled faster than wildfire on a dry day. By evening, every diner, regular and dock worker in the area was whispering about the mysterious old man in the wheelchair. Some said he was a retired commander. Others swore he was CIA. No one knew for sure, but the 3 sailors who'd mocked him weren't laughing anymore. They'd been called into their unit office that afternoon. Their commanding officer didn't shout. He didn't need to. The quiet disappointment in his voice was worse. "You 3 think this base wears the sealed trident just for show?" He'd said. "That man you disrespected, he's not just a veteran. He's a legend. You embarrassed this uniform?" The oldest of the 3 stammered, "Sir, we didn't know exactly." The officer snapped. "You didn't know because you never looked beyond the surface. You saw a wheelchair. You saw an old man. You didn't see Iron Shade, the man who pulled 2 teams out of coasts under live fire, who went MIA for 6 weeks behind enemy lines and came back carrying everyone else's dog tags." The room had gone silent. Now, sitting in the barracks, the sailors stared at the floor. Their arrogance had evaporated, replaced by the sick heaviness of shame. Back at the diner, the old man sat at his usual spot again, this time alone. The waitress brought him coffee without asking. "You really were someone, weren't you?" she said softly. He chuckled. Was past tense. "You saved lives, they say." He didn't respond right away. He just stirred his coffee. That was a long time ago. The world forgets, and that's fine. Some things are meant to fade. She hesitated, but they remembered today. The old man's eyes drifted to the window where the sunset bled gold across the bay. They remembered because I never wanted them to. At that moment, outside the diner, one of the SUVs pulled back in. The same tall SEAL stepped out, removing his sunglasses. He walked straight to the old man. "Sir, headquarters heard what happened. They wanted to thank you personally." "Thank me?" The old man smiled faintly. "For what? Not decking a bunch of kids?" "For reminding us what quiet strength looks like," the SEAL replied. That night, the sky hung low over the coast, the kind of blue-black that felt heavy with memory. The diner lights flickered, reflecting off the window beside the old man. He was alone again, tracing the rim of his coffee cup with a finger, lost in thought. The waitress Maria watched from the counter. She'd worked there 15 years and seen every kind of man pass through, retirees, lost travelers, but never one who carried silence like armor. Finally, she asked, "You really going to tell me what Iron Shade means?" The old man looked up, smiling faintly. "Just a call sign, sweetheart. Back when names were shorter and lives were longer. You still don't look like someone who'd take orders from anybody." He chuckled softly. "I didn't. That's why they stopped giving me any." Outside, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steadier. Across the street, a black SUV still idled. The SEAL team hadn't left town completely. They were staying nearby. Watching the leader, Lieutenant Mason Hale, stood in the rain, arms crossed. His men didn't ask why they were still there. They knew. When Iron Shade resurfaced, it meant something. Back inside, Maria set a plate in front of the old man. On the house, "You've got friends watching outside." He didn't even look. They were always better at keeping distance than goodbyes. Maria tilted her head. "You talk like a man waiting for something." He hesitated. Then, for the first time, he looked tired, not physically, but deep inside. "I'm not waiting. I'm remembering. That's the curse of surviving too long." Across the street, Hale's phone buzzed. He answered quietly. "Hale, Lieutenant Command here. You still with Iron Shade?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Stay close. Intelligence chatter says someone from his past might come looking." Hale frowned. "Who name's Victor Denuve? Russian. Used to be GRU before he went rogue. Last operation he was tied to was the Coast Rescue, the same one Shade led. Word is, he's in country." Hale's jaw tightened. "Understood. We'll keep eyes on him." He hung up, staring through the rain at the faint silhouette of the old man in the window. Something told him this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The next morning broke cold and gray. Seagulls hovered over the docks, their cries echoing over the empty boardwalk. The diner opened early, and, as usual, the old man was already there. Maria poured his coffee and nodded toward the parking lot. "Your friends didn't sleep much." He glanced outside. The black SUVs were gone, but he knew better. There around, he took a slow sip, then noticed something unusual. A black van parked 2 blocks down. Windows tinted darker than regulation. His instincts, dulled by time but not gone, stirred again. Maria noticed his expression. Something wrong. Maybe? He adjusted his hat, eyes narrowing. Or maybe the past just found me. Moments later, the diner bell jingled. 2 men walked in clean-cut, but not military. Their eyes were scanning, too deliberate, the kind of movement you never forget if you've lived through it. They took a booth at the back, ordered coffee, and didn't touch it. Shade quietly rolled his wheelchair back, positioning himself with the wall to his right and the window to his left, just like the old days when Maria approached the newcomers. One of them flashed a badge too quickly for her to read. "Just water," he said curtly. But Shade caught the accent, faint Eastern European. He smiled, barely. "Water's good for ghosts." The man looked up, startled. "Excuse me." "You heard me," Shade replied softly. "Tell Victor I'm still not interested." The diner froze. Maria stopped mid-step. The men didn't respond, but their hands teed them. Before they could move, the diner door swung open again. Lieutenant Hale stepped in with two of his men, all plainclothes, but unmistakable. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Everything okay here, sir?" The two strangers looked at each other, then stood. "Wrong diner?" one muttered, and they slipped out. Hale watched them go. Victor's men. Shade nodded once. "He's here. He doesn't like unfinished business. Then he's about to find out he picked the wrong ghost to chase." Hale said grimly. Shade gave a tired smile. "You've still got that seal fire in you. Don't waste it." Hale crouched beside him. "Sir, if you're in danger, we'll move you somewhere secure." Shade shook his head. "No, if this ends, it ends here. I'm not running anymore." By evening, the storm had rolled in hard. Lightning cracked over the ocean, and the small town fell quiet. The diner had closed early. Everyone except Maria and the old man had gone home. Outside, two SUVs stood guard, rain streaking down their windshields. Hale's team was ready. Inside. Shade sat near the window, his hands resting on his lap, steady, calm, waiting. "Do you ever wish you'd stayed gone?" Maria asked softly. He smiled faintly. "Every day. But fate doesn't listen to wishes." The lights flickered once, then again. Hale's voice came over the radio. "Eyes open. Black van approaching from east. 3 hostiles minimum." Maria's breath caught. "Hostiles? You mean?" Shade interrupted, his tone firm. "Get behind the counter, Maria." She hesitated, then ducked low as the door creaked open. 3 men entered, the same cold precision, same silence. The leader, tall and pale, stepped forward. His scar caught the lightning flash from outside. "Michael Shade," he said. "Or should I say, Iron Shade, you left me to die in Coast." Shade's voice was steady. "You left yourself? You sold coordinates for money." Victor smiled thinly. "And you killed my men for it." "They killed themselves the day they betrayed their oath." The silence that followed was broken by the sound of boots splashing outside. Hale's voice came from the doorway. "Step away from him." The SEALs entered like shadows, each movement synchronized. Deliberate. Victor turned, sneering. "Ah, the next generation. Still following orders, I see." Hale's eyes didn't move. "We follow honor. You wouldn't understand that." A flash of lightning illuminated the diner, and in that instant, Victor reached under his coat. Shade moved first, despite the wheelchair. His reflexes were pure instinct. His hand shot to the side pocket, pulling a compact revolver. The sound was deafening in the small room. When the flash cleared, Victor stood still for half a heartbeat before falling backward. His weapon clattered uselessly to the floor. Shade exhaled slowly, hand trembling just once before steadying again. Hale stepped forward, checking the scene. Clear. The SEALs moved efficiently, securing the area, reporting the incident. But Hale's focus stayed on the old man, who now seemed older, smaller, but not broken. "Sir," Hale said quietly, "you shouldn't have had to do that." Shade looked at him. "No one should, but sometimes peace comes at the price of memory." The next morning dawned clear. The storm gone, the world washed clean. Outside the diner, an American flag flapped gently in the ocean breeze. Shade sat quietly, his wheelchair facing the horizon. Hale approached, coffee in hand. "Morning, sir." "Morning, Lieutenant," Shade replied softly. "The report's done. Command knows what happened. They wanted to send transport, medical, to..." Shade smiled faintly. "Tell them no need." "I've had enough rides." Hale nodded slowly. "You sure you don't want to come back to base, even for a visit?" The old man's eyes softened. "I already did, yesterday." Hale looked puzzled, then realized the base wasn't a place for him anymore. It was the men who stood by him. Behind them, the rest of Hale's team emerged. Without a word, they lined up on the curb, forming a silent column. Shade looked at them, young faces, steady eyes, the future he'd once fought for. One by one, the SEALs raised their hands in salute. Shade didn't return it immediately. He just stared, his expression caught between pride and sorrow. Finally, he lifted his trembling hand, fingers curling into a crisp, perfect salute. For a long moment, no one moved. The wind carried nothing but quiet respect. Then Hale spoke softly. "You ever need anything, sir? Any time, any place. Iron Shade doesn't fade for us. Shade smiled faintly, lowering his hand. Then make sure it doesn't fade for each other. That's how you win the wars that come after the shooting stops. The men nodded. Then, one by one, they turned and walked away, back to their trucks, back to their missions. Shade stayed where he was. Watching the horizon until the last SUV disappeared, Maria stepped out from the diner, wiping her hands on her apron. They really respected you. He looked down at his old cap, the stitching frayed but still proud. Respect's not given, Maria. It's remembered. She smiled softly. You're going to be back tomorrow? Shade looked at the ocean and chuckled. If I'm lucky. As the sun rose higher, its light caught the brim of his cap, and for a moment, the faint letters Iron Shade glimmered gold. And just like that, the legend disappeared quietly into another day, a soldier no one recognized until it mattered most.